I seriously don't get why they would release this poster knowing how many big things it spoils in Stranger Things Season 5. I can't even make this up, and I'm not even talking about the certain shape that the lightning makes, and I'm not talking about the fact that they decided to hide one of Vecna's eyes, clearly hinting at some very specific D&D lore behind the actual Vecna character. I'm talking about something more meaningful, about who is going to die this season. Yup, you heard me right, because if we take a look at the gang's bikes, you might notice that only 2 of them have their flashlights on. And with how closely the Duffer Brothers pay attention to these small details, I can't help but feel like this has some actual meaning behind it. Some people noticed that another important character, Eddie Munson, was also specifically the only one with a flashlight on his bike during Season 4, and look what happened to him. I don't like what this is implying because we can clearly see in the new title card for Season 5 each of the 4 boys' bikes abandoned on the ground in the upside down, and each one of them has their flashlights on. Why is it only here that they chose to let only 2 of them have flashlights? Surprisingly enough, for how big this is, there's so many more hidden details in this single image that we're going to explore and break down. I really am surprised by how much they managed to fit into this season's poster without making it so obvious. Send this video to all of your Stranger Things friends because I want everybody to get to enjoy and be a part of this conversation around the show for one last time before we reach the finish line. Also, thanks for all the support in the channel recently. We just hit 600k and I can't wait to hit 700k with you soon. Now let's just go ahead and start breaking down all of these new details. But first, I want to look at this new design for Vecna himself. Last we saw him in Season 4, he was doing less than good. He took 2 Molotovs and 5 shots from Nancy, went out the window and fell 2 stories and went kerplat. I mean, he looks dead here, but nope, give him 30 seconds for the kids to make it outside and boom, where'd he go? He's like Michael Myers and just wandered on out of here. But after being so badly injured, he will most definitely need time to heal his injuries, and based on this new shot of him, it looks like he'll be evolving even further into a more final form. Because after this moment, they go years without seeing him. Do you know how nervous they must have been for the last 2 years that he'll just pop back up randomly and solo everybody? You couldn't ever relax. But let's take a closer look at his new face. We can see right away that they redesigned his face to be less smooth and introduced these pointed tendrils, the ends of the veins running all over his face and body. In the Season 4 design, he was more smoothed out, still looking veiny with tendrils all over his body and face, but you would never see the pointy tips of the ends. They were all smoothly blended into his skin. This makes it seem like these are almost thorns. This gives him a much more aggressive look than before, and I can't help but feel like that's partially due to all the Grinch lookalike comments he received. In a couple of the shots, it kind of looks like he had a little bit of a tummy, something similar to the Jim Carrey Grinch. But that's not necessarily something that you want to hear about your big scary villain for the show. Even in the trailer they just released, we can see on his body too that the tendrils are detaching and reaching out almost towards where he's focusing his power, resembling thorns almost, a little bit like Groot. I'm Groot. I gotta say, this is much more terrifying and violent looking than the more grounded Season 4 approach. I will say though that his face always looks scary. They absolutely nailed that look. But you know what? Now it looks even scarier. I think the one shot that we saw of the Vecna we recognized in the BTS video was resembling Season 4 Vecna in a flashback, or it was merely just the same physical suit they're using to record Jamie Campbell Bower in, and then they're completely replacing him with this CGI double. Another way that he seems to have changed or evolved almost is these teeth that seem to be growing out of the side of his head. This looks similar to the meat puppet in Season 3, not only in its mouth where it had a large number of these teeth growing, but also all over its body. As it accumulated all of these random parts, we saw multiple of these large spikes or teeth coming out from all over its body, and the meat puppet was arguably one of the scariest monsters we've seen in Stranger Things. So adding these teeth like thorns to the top of Vecna's head would be an insane step in his evolution. This almost resembles a crown if it continues around his head like this. And Vecna from D&D lore typically is seen wearing a crown, as if he's getting closer with each step to his prime form. And interestingly enough, this isn't the only physical change we've seen to his body since this new footage of him in Season 5. If you notice, in this poster they've chosen to hide one of his eyes, and at first it made me wonder if maybe he sustained damage in the Season 4 finale and we just didn't notice that he lost one of his eyes, but no, here's 1, 2, 3, 4 in 5 shots that he took, and all of them were center mass. Good shot, Nancy. And on his way out of the Creel house, we can see that he still has both of his eyes intact. And even on the ground, we can clearly see both are undamaged. But then I remembered the D&D lore behind this character, how the eye and hand of Vecna are so symbolic to his existence. So much of this show has been derived and been explained with D&D. It's a core part of the show. And in D&D lore, if you remember, Vecna was a lich, one of the undead. But before that, his right-hand man Cass eventually cut him down, and all that remained was Vecna's eye and his hand. And these items granted incredible power to adventurers that found them. You would have to permanently attach these to your body, replacing your own eye and hand with them. The eye would give the user true sight, which is what Will had, being able to see into the upside down, and the hand granted insane strength, and having both together gives you immunity to poison and diseases. You get spider senses before danger happens, and you can't be surprised by attacks. To destroy them forever, you must use the Sword of Cass, and once they're slain, they will burst into flames and turn to ash. If they're destroyed any other way, they will just respawn in one of Vecna's many hidden vaults. And Cass and his sword coming into play opens the doors for us to see Eddie again, which is a whole nother theory. But this would explain why they're hiding Vecna's right eye, and also why it's directly above none other than our boy Will. And he is going to play such a big role this season with his connection to Henry Creel, Vecna himself, as well as to the Mind Flayer and the rest of the Hive Mind. Will is definitely going to be directly in Vecna's crosshairs, especially with this poster here. And we can even see how much bigger they've chosen to make Vecna's left hand for Season 5. Compared to his other one, this is huge. And yes, even in Season 4 it was slightly bigger, but I can't help but notice it's staring at me now. It's definitely much larger. I would expect a lot of D&D lore and explanations for this final season. I also really love his new outline. He's a little bit more skinny in the midsections of his limbs and bulkier in the joints, especially his shoulders. As he evolves more, he continues to step farther and farther away from looking human, which I think is a great design choice for Season 5. Like, look at these thorns on his back, they look so menacing. I also really like how similar this season's poster is to the others, especially Season 2's with all of them looking at the Mind Flayer in the distance. This is so cool. I love that 11 is on the back of Mike's bike still. All the way back in Season 1 poster, we got the same thing. 11 on the back of Mike's bike, and this is just so cute. The shot of this in the show was so sweet, and cut to now with her still riding behind him, it's just so nice to see. I love the callback here. It's also weird that in all the posters for each season, this is the first one that the kids are moving from right to left. Usually they're either looking forward at something or moving left to right as things normally do to progress. I wonder if this season we will see the gang literally going backwards, going back in time. I mean, we've kind of already seen them do this to an extent with Will's time in the Upside Down. Another reason he's going to be so important this season is because we're going back to where this all started, that night when Will was first taken. They showed us a long time ago that the opening scene of this season will start with Will in the Upside Down, and then we saw a finished shot of his flashback in the latest trailer, as well as a behind-the-scenes shot of him in the Upside Down, as well as Noah Schnapp laying next to the younger actor portraying young 1983 Will in these flashbacks, probably giving him tips on how to act like young Will. We really need to sit down and look at that comic soon of Will's first time in the Upside Down. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss that video. And not only that, but we also know that just last season they introduced that the Upside Down has been stuck in 1983, frozen in time from the day Will first arrived. So they're going to have to spend time explaining how and why the Upside Down is like this, and it seems like part of the gang will be going specifically to the 1983 version of Hawkins' lab in the Upside Down for something that seems very important to the plot. Everywhere we look, we can see that we're going back in time this season, and with them riding their bikes from right to left, it seems to confirm that even more. And I really love that they let Will be the one in front. I know they have been teasing Mike as the party's leader in Season 4 with the painting and showing him up in front protecting the children in the teaser, but I like that Will is going to be doing something this season. All I want is to see his character done justice. With this being the final season of the show, this is their last chance to redeem him. Season 1 was all about finding him. Season 2 was about saving him from the Hive Mind. And then season 3 and 4, he was just completely forgotten about. He's technically more of a main character than any of the other OG boys. Without him, the Upside Down wouldn't be what it is today. It wouldn't look like Hawkins, and Vecna is clearly coming after specifically Will now. And he's the only one that could tell us that Vecna was still alive after they defeated him in season 4's finale. Please do Will justice with this last season. I'm really hoping the payoff is worth the wait, and knowing it's the Duffer Brothers, I have faith in them. I also don't know what they're trying to tell us with the bike's headlights. With how much forethought and Easter eggs are always scattered everywhere in the show, I find it so hard to believe that they didn't add this small detail on purpose. It's weird that only 2 of the boys have lights on their bikes, Will and Dustin. Why does Mike and Lucas not have lights? Last time we saw Lucas on a bike in season 4, he had a light, and Mike had a light on his bike when we saw him at the end of season 3. For what reason did they choose these 2 to not have lights? Some people have pointed out the coincidence of this mattering in season 4. When we see them using the bikes in the Upside Down, would you look at who the only person with a light on their bike is? Yup, Eddie Munson. This is terrifying. I don't like what this is implying. Even in the new title card for the show that they revealed with the vines on the ground, you can see all 4 of the OG boys' bikes abandoned in the Upside Down, and all 4 of them have lights on their bikes. This is feeling more and more intentional, and I don't like it, because I would genuinely be surprised if they decided to kill any of the OG boys off. Even 11 would be pretty hard to do and still end the show on a good note. If you lose too many of the heroes, the main characters, how happy is the audience going to be with it? We kinda just saw that with Squid Game. If this is how they're hinting at major character deaths, I'd be really shocked. Let's cross our fingers and hope that the flashlights have some other meaning. Another little detail is Will is in his full trauma fit, the jacket and backpack too. This is the outfit he was digitally scanned in, usually meaning there will be an intense CGI action scene of him in this outfit. So that's nerve-wracking. Mike and Lucas are in the same outfits that they're in when we see them all together at the radio station in the behind the scenes video, which means this is early on in the show. 11 is in her superhero training outfit with the shorts over the pants that are really starting to grow on me. I can't wait for this season to drop. And Dustin seems to be in the outfit he was roughed up in, the thinking cap, the trench coat, and the Hellfire Club tee, which is a sick combo. Now, the last and final interesting thing I couldn't help but notice is the lightning. And not the fact that it's almost highlighting these teeth that are growing out of Vecna's head, but the fact that it's making the shape of someone. Someone that must play a very important role this season. I kind of feel like at first glance, this resembles a young boy with how big his head is in relation to the rest of his body. It almost looks like short shorts and knee-high socks or something, kind of older, like 1959 older. I'm talking about young Henry Creel. I really like hearing Vecna monologue about his backstory and how he became that messed up, twisted person that he is today, because let's be real, he was a messed up little kid. And with all the indicators of us heavily going back in time this season, I wouldn't be surprised if we revisit 1959 to expand on young Henry's story, especially to relate him to being like Will as he full throttle targets him in season 5. And so while I think it could very much be young Henry here, it almost seems like this person is wearing a hat with a brim around it, and instead of short shorts, this is a suit jacket. I can't think of anyone in the show already that this could be, but it's entirely possible that this will be a very important new character that we have just yet to see in any promo material. Just like how the season 3 poster showed 11 looking backwards at us, we thought, but if we looked at the ground, we could see that it was the meat puppet she was looking at, foreshadowing the final act of everyone being chased and going up against this gnarly monster. This as well could be hinting at something bad, a new Upside Down related character with it being made out of red lightning. I really like this poster that they packed as much as they could into it without spoiling anything crazy. Of course, here's the radio tower that we'll see the gang at for a majority of this season too. Tell me in the comments if you think the flashlights on their bikes means they're going to kill off Will and Dustin, because I would not be okay. Thanks for watching, send this to your Stranger Things friends, and I will see you in the next one. Peace.